is a spiritual deity. Freedom and liberty and justice shall fight for you. When you fight for freedom with all your soul, take it from me. This is Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB, the voice of the nation, the voice.
This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB, bringing you news, cultural and educational programs. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra.
This is BCB, and this is Rosama. We are going to have one of our occasional conversations, and we hope that in the future we will continue these conversations. We did this a while ago, and we had planned to continue that, but as things, of course, have happened, we have had to respond to urgent matters in the homeland. And right now, we have a number of urgent issues, but we're returning back to our plan to continue having conversations with key people in the Biafra restoration movement or Biafra restoration project. Meeting with me today in conversation is the PM of Biafra Government in Exile. I want to welcome PM again. We have had a conversation in the past, and I'm glad that we are doing that again this time. To those of you who do not know us, this is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. We have a program via YouTube on Sundays at 4 p.m. Biafra time. And we hope that you will sign in and listen to our program. This conversation is part of our ongoing conversation series. And today, again, we are with PM, the Prime Minister of the Biafra Government in Exile. I will let him introduce himself briefly. PM, please introduce yourself briefly.
Thank you very much, Rose. My name is Uday Christian. I am the head of Biafra Government in Exile. Thank you very much. I live in London, United Kingdom, and very active in Biafra Restoration Project. Thank you.
Excellent. PM, well, you know, let's begin with a few urgent matters. As we all know, the Nigerian presidential election has just taken place about approximately 2 months ago, February 25th, 2023. And many people had hoped that, Peter Obi would have been the person selected as the president-elect. While the BGIE is not particularly interested in the elections, does not participate in the elections, we do know that this election and also the election of governors have implications for, for Biafrans. And I say this because in response to the claimed rigging of the elections and the failure of Peter Obi to be identified as the president-elect, people were not very happy. The subsequent election, the gubernatorial elections, did not yield some of the results people had expected. Not only in terms of the elections of governors, but also in terms of attitude towards Biafrans, specifically Igbo-speaking Biafrans in a number of places. As such, these two elections and now the looming census have serious implications for the Biafra restoration struggle. What would you say to Biafrans who are watching, this happen? What are your thoughts?
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is a very, very important period in Biafra restoration movement. There are a lot of people that are involved. There are a lot of groups that are involved. But what I want to say first and foremost is that the agitation for the restoration of the sovereign state of Biafra is legitimate. Whoever that is involved in seeking for Biafra to exit from Nigeria is not committing any crime, unless though a few or uninformed people who have decided to inadvertently hide under the name of Biafra to commit crime. If anybody is carrying arms and molesting people and trying to enforce one rule or the other, or terrorizing our own people or even law enforcement in the name of Biafra struggle, then they are committing a crime. And the position of Biafra government in exile is that the process to restore Biafra as an independent nation, it does not involve violence. It does not involve committing crime. Having said that, I have a few questions I want to put across to our listeners, just to make us, every Biafran, think about what is happening in Nigeria today and what our position should be. If Peter Obi was rigged out of the elections, will Igbos decide, or Biafrans, Igbos and other nationalities in Biafra land, decide to leave Nigeria? Will that injustice situation make it a definite, help our people make that definite decision that they do not belong in Nigeria? Again, why is Nnamdi Kanu and many other Biafran agitators still being detained in DSS detention camps? What are the Igbo elders saying about it? What is Ohaneze saying about it? Because we know that it is only the Buhari administration that is using state power to hold these people, against court orders in most cases. So if we are able to answer these questions and many more, why is there no fully functional airport in the Southeast? Why is there no fully functional seaport in the Southeast? Why are there no rail lines connecting the major towns in the Southeast and linking other big towns, including Lagos and Abuja, to the Southeast? Why is the highways in the Southeast in the state of disrepair? Why is there a quota system against our people? Why is there a different cutoff mark for our people when we write examinations into universities? Why are Fulani headsmen terrorizing our communities and the security forces are supporting them? Why are Igbo-speaking people asked to leave Lagos in the back of these elections? So many other questions that are staring us in the face, that every right-thinking person will come to the same conclusion, that Nigeria do not have any way to accommodate Biafra in their nation. And the single thing to do, the only thing to do, is for the people to be allowed to have a vote to decide to leave Nigeria. So what this election has done, even though before the election, BGIE told our people that if you want to vote, it is within your right to vote. But as a government, we do not participate in Nigerian elections, and we do not have a view or an opinion about it. Our primary responsibility is for Biafra to be restored, for us to have freedom and liberty, to be our own nation, to be secured, to be free to develop at our own pace. So this election and some of the questions I've raised are very clear indications that Biafrans, especially Igbos, are not regarded as part of Nigeria. They are victimized, they are marginalized, they are under subjugation, they are being killed, they are facing all sorts of atrocities against them, which no people within any country or nation should be subjected to. And therefore, the Igbos, the Biafrans, must now begin to think of how they can secure themselves in a free, independent nation outside Nigeria. Finally, we must not lose sight of the role of the British government in what is happening in Nigeria today. It is a calculated attempt to continue the unwritten law that no Igbo man or no Igbo Biafran should be president of Nigeria. So if the British will be complicit in the crime of genocide against Biafra during the war, and they continue to be complicit in the continued marginalization and holding down of Biafrans in Nigeria, and making sure that they do not get close to political power to bring changes to the country. It is clear that the British played active role in making sure that this sham election, presidential election on the 25th of February, did not return the most credible candidate in the context. Coincidence is just a coincidence that credible is not a coincidence that credible candidate is an Igbo Biafran. And it was clear throughout the campaign that this candidate was the most qualified, was the most capable, knows what he's doing, and is able to deliver the change that the people want. And this is the only candidate that was vocal about stopping oil theft, the stealing of natural resources that are found in predominantly Biafra land. So we know that there are foreign powers who benefit from stealing these resources, that have colluded with the federal government of Nigeria led by Muhammadu Buhari, and colluded with the INEC, who are supposed to be unbiased umpires, who are supposed to be independent. And they've colluded with the Sokoto Caliphate and the cabal, this Islamic cabal that is holding that country to ransom, to make sure that power does not get into the hand of an Igbo man or a Biafra man who is able to stand shoulder to shoulder in the world, knowing what he's doing, to stop all the corruption and atrocities that are prevalent in Nigeria, especially in the oil sector and other mineral resources sector. So I say to every Biafran today, read between the lines. It is clear that Nigerians do not want us, do not regard Biafrans as part of them, especially Igbo speaking. Lagos, the thugs of Tinubu in Lagos are saying, harassing Igbo people. They say there are thousands and thousands of examples. I give you one. A friend of mine, the sister lost her shop in Lagos, and she's unable to get another shop because the Yorubas are saying they will never allow Igbos to establish businesses again. Properties that are sold for 100,000, for example, in Lagos, if you're an Igbo person and you want to buy that property, you buy it 10 times the value of that property. So there are all sorts of economic terrorization, social terrorism, and victimization and brutality against Igbo people that have more than tripled since after the election. So that should be telling us something. It is time we look eastwards. It is time we all come together and build our own nation. It is time we all make that conscious decision that we do not belong in Nigeria, and we have to fight tooth and nail to extricate ourselves from this problem, from this contraption, and restore our own nation, where we can live in peace, we can live in prosperity, our children and their children will live in peace and live in prosperity. For we know that we are capable of building that nation that can prosper, and we can all be safe in it.
Thank you, PM. These are powerful words. They are important statements, and they need to be made. I think many people will agree, many Biafrans, a lot of Nigerians also will agree with you that what has happened since the elections simply is an excavating of old animosities towards Igbo-speaking Biafrans. The elections just simply opened up the earth. The wounds have always been there. The hate has always been there. Many of us who experienced the war between, from 1967 to 1970, people who experienced that pogrom or the series of pogroms in 1966 did not think this would happen again. But here we are again. So that you mentioned genocide. It hasn't stopped. It is emerging. They dug up the old hateful language, especially in Lagos, as you said. But you also asked—
Can I make one more point, please?
Yes, please go.
Sorry to cut you in, but just
It's
one more
okay,
point.
go. It's a conversation, go.
Yes, just one more point on the census. The census must not be allowed to happen. Not even that it is going to cause us problems in the East, and Igbo people and other nationalities in Biafra, in the old Eastern region. It's also going to cause nationalities in the Middle Belt problems, and even the Yorubas that are now trying to pally up with the Hausa Fulani to victimize and marginalize and brutalize Igbos. It's going to also affect them. Because what has happened is, in 8 years of APC administration led by Muhammadu Buhari, their principal activity their principal focus, their objective is to make sure that the Fulani becomes the major tribe in Nigeria and Islam becomes the principal faith. So the agenda of Islamization has been on since Buhari took office. And he did not make any jokes about it. He did not pretend about it. He was clear that he will continue to do everything that will make sure that Sharia is practiced in every nook and cranny of Nigeria. So that agenda has been there. For when he looks the other way, when Fulani headsmen carry automatic weapons and attack communities, expel communities from Benue to Enugu to Abia states and places where they've been attacking and killing people, the federal government keeps quiet. The police keeps quiet. The army keeps quiet. When a group of terrorists are terrorizing the people, the government fails in its primary responsibility of protecting lives and property. That is criminal. And the Buhari administration is guilty of criminality on all counts, be it embezzling public funds, mismanagement of public funds, and killing its own people. So they must not be allowed to get away with murder. The international community, I hope, are watching and taking note. Amnesty International, the UN, and all the organizations who are observing what is happening in Nigeria and the criminality and the corruption that they are doing. Imagine breaking international standards to extraordinarily rendition someone who has a British nationality, in the case of Nnamdi Kanu, and still take him to court, and he's acquitted by the court, and still he's still being held in detention. And we hear his health is failing. We hear there are inmates that have tuberculosis that are in the same vicinity with him. And with all this impunity, our elders, where are our elders? Where are our leaders? Where are the so-called political leaders, traditional leaders, elders, people in Igbo land, in Biafra land? Why are they not speaking up? Why are they not shouting from the rooftops? And everybody saw how the borders were opened and people from Niger, from Senegal, from Fulanis from all over Africa flooded into Nigeria under this Buhari administration. And a few days to the end of this administration, because a new, if the inauguration of Tinubu takes place in 29th of May, the end of Buhari's administration finishes in less than 35, 36 days time. So without preparation, without due process, how is a census going to be organized properly? A census that is a key tool for every national planning. You use censuses to plan whatever you do in your education, in distribution of resources, in healthcare, in transport management. Everything about national planning and statistics comes from the census figures. How can you use it only for to reinforce your bigotry, reinforce ethnic divides and religious divisions, in order to impose your religion and your ethnic group as the superior one in a country that is supposed to be secular? It is criminal, and everyone from the middle belt to the west, to the east, to the south must refuse to take part in that count, because it's got nothing to do with planning, with development. It has everything to do with trying to take over people's land, for Fulanis to take over the whole country, just like their forefather Usman Dan Fodio wanted to do, and his jihad was stopped. They want to continue that jihad, and they will do everything possible to do that. But we're saying it will not happen in our time, and it will not happen, not now, not ever.
Thank you again. And I hope people are listening. Clearly, this project of Islamization, has not been hidden. It's been there. It's been there for quite a long time. It was there in the 50s. It was there in the 60s. Even under the British administration, it was there in the 60s. It was there post-independence. It was there in the 70s. It has been there all along. And anyone who is watching or who is, observant, ought to know that the Ruga Ruga scheme was simply a Trojan horse to bring in, cattle herders or Fulanese into territories where they did not previously occupy. And yes, there is need to have a very clear conversation about this, because this has a lot to do with the appropriation of, lands in other areas. The practice of cattle herding in other areas of the world, are in ranches. Why can't they have ranches in the north, as opposed to, trooping into people's farmlands and destroying their farms and their crops just to feed cattle?
Yeah.
So
and people cannot feed. People cannot feed. We cannot. A country that is vast in arable land cannot produce food for its people, and cattle rearers are wielding weapons and destroying farms, and the government keeps quiet. It's a travesty.
Yes, indeed. And in your comments make me think of if we analyze your comments, they point at the numerous violations of the articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, not only are citizenship rights being violated for Igbo-speaking Biafrans especially, but other people. In the Middle Belt, people in the Middle Belt are not safe. A few days ago, I got a video clip from, via WhatsApp, and I'm not sure how old that video clip is, but it is a clip of mass burial of people in southern Kaduna who have been killed, massacred. So there is a genocide. I think I recall, last year or maybe a year and a half ago, Governor Autumn screaming about a genocide happening, and that this government has remained silent. Instead, it has lobbied, encouraged, Meati Allah to basically run amok across the country. So there is a genocide happening. There's a genocide happening, especially in the extermination of underrepresented groups. But the elections exposed the extent of that and the extent to which that applies to Igbo-speaking Biafrans, because they were the target group. They were the group that, was demonized. They were the people who were being run out of Lagos, forbidden to go vote. They couldn't even exercise their rights of citizenship. Let's say hypothetically, they wanted to vote as Nigerians. That is a right too, that's guaranteed, and they couldn't even do that. So, this conversation is important, and I hope our people are listening, because this is the time for them to decide where to go, what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. There have been warnings in the last at least 20 years. There have been warnings from Voice of Biafra International, being run by Biafra Foundation some years back. There have been warnings from Radio Biafra London. In fairness to Kanu, he sounded all these warnings, which were first sounded by Voice of Biafra International many years ago. But all those things that were said then are happening now. They are staring us in the face. We cannot afford to be quiet. We cannot afford to be rudderless this time. We need a leadership at home that will recognize the times we are in. These are dangerous times, and the only way we can run away from it is for every Biafran to form a united front and leave Nigeria, protect our borders, strengthen ourselves from any external aggressions. So if you continue to support, if the federal government of Nigeria continues to support terrorists to kill Igbo Biafrans or all Biafrans wherever they may be, and you still claim that Southeast Nigeria is still your territory and the people who reside therein are your people, that means you are supporting the killing of your own people. And that is enough reason for the international community to interfere. Because the UN will always go into a space where the government of the day is killing its own people. That is one of the reasons why international community interfere in local issues. So take Ahiamufu, for example. How many people in that community were killed? Take Enugu Ezike, for example. Go to what is happening in areas in Okigwe and the environs in Abia State. And now we know it's happening in Calabar, it's happening even in Bayelsa, in River State even. We know that we saw pictures where young people were demonstrating in Yenego a few weeks ago because the Fulanis killed one of their own. So it's happening all over the place in the Southeast, even in Yoruba land. The Yoruba land, the forests and their farms were taken over by these herdsmen, and they formed a Moteko to combat it. So, and this was the argument of one of the observers during the pogrom in 1966, as you said. They said, I think it was the reporter for the Observer of London that said, the killing of the Igbo has become an industry in Nigeria. End of quote. It is happening again because, and Susanna Kronje in her book argued when she was proving that the British are complicit in the crime of genocide against Biafrans, against our people. She argued that if the federal government under Gowon claims that Southeast, East Old Eastern region was still part of Nigeria, then it means that the government had allowed the killing of its own people or has participated in killing its own people in thousands because army officers, policemen, and law enforcement, we are part of the mob that, slaughtered Igbos in Nogwausa in the north. So the Nigerian government was actively murdering its own people, even during the war. You carrying out a police action to quash a rebellion or whatever they call it then, which we know is not right. We know we were defending ourselves because Nigeria attacked us. If you are saying you're taking police action to quash a rebellion, and you were bombing, civilian targets, markets, hospitals, that means the government is killing its own people, trying to exterminate its own people. And that is what is happening now. And those forces are again building up on the back of this election that clearly elected P.B as president. But because of the agreement reached 8 years ago between Buhari and Tinubu, they are hell-bent on truncating the will of the people, which they spoke out loud and clear through the ballot box. Even though we saw that every attempt was violently made, because INEC were not independent, they were part of the scheme to uphold the agreement between Buhari and Tinubu pre-2015, that after Buhari has gone in for 8 years, that Tinubu will be sworn in for another 8 years. This is the agreement playing out now. And it didn't matter that there was another candidate or another party who had better programs, who had better ideas on how to turn things around. It didn't matter. It didn't matter that there was a campaign for people to get their permanent voters card PVC. It was all a scam. It was all a deceit of the whole population of Nigeria. All the noise about getting PVC, the PVC will do that, and all the noise about beavers and all those rubbish, IREV, I don't know what acronyms they were giving them. It was all a scam. In Port Harcourt, in the whole of Rivers State, the whole network was shut down for the rigging to take place, to make sure that results were not transmitted real time. In Lagos, Igbos were disenfranchised. You were told, do not come out to vote if you're not going to vote APC. But even at that, the Labour Party still won in Lagos State, even though the vote numbers were suppressed. So what does that tell you? A government that continues to murder its own people, a government that continues to marginalize against its own people, backed by the British evil establishment to continue to extract the resources of the people and to perpetually keep the people in bondage and in poverty. How can the people not rise up under these circumstances? How can Biafra people not want to exit from Nigeria and form their own state where they will be safe, where they can progress? It is no-brainer. So it is clear, and it's within the rights of indigenous peoples, especially the indigenous people of Biafra, to legally pursue a process through which they can extricate themselves from a union that they were forced into and they continue to suffer within, in order to be able to build a nation that they can be proud of.
Thank you again, PM. This is bound to be exhausting. You know, it is exhausting that we have to go through this again and again and again. You know, I think of the Reggae Priest's reggae piece where he talks about Biafra, the only hope of Africa, and he practically cites the United Nations Declaration of Rights. We've been crying and nobody seems to be listening. Why is the cry of Biafrans for self-determination different from, you know, the cries of other people? South Sudan cried and asked for self-determination. They got it. Eritrea did, and they got it. Biafrans have been asking for this, not because they entered, you know, they agreed or, you know, to enter this relationship with Nigeria, but one, they were forced to enter the relationship with Nigeria. It was the Northern and Southern protectorates that were amalgamated. But at the end of the war, they were told no vanquished, no victor, right?
Yeah.
And the assumption was that there would be peace. That they would be back in a nation called Nigeria and that they would have the same rights as everyone else. But as we have found out, they have not had those rights. There were lootings and destructions of Igbo-owned businesses and homes in the late 70s in places like Kanu, Kaduna, have you forgotten Zaria, Jos in the 80s? Same thing. When El-Rufai decided to dismantle the huge market at Abuja, most of those businesses were owned by Igbos. And now it is 2023 and we're back at this again.
Yeah, so you remember this is part of the 3 R's they talked about after the war: reconstruction,
yes,
rehabilitation, and restoration, or something.
Well, there was no restoration and there was no rehabilitation.
None of that. But the money was voted for reconstruction, and the reconstruction started in Lagos. So it's funny that the whole war was fought in the East, and because Awolowo was Minister of Finance,
yes,
and you made provision money for reconstruction of the places that were devastated by war, and you start spending the money in the West where
nothing happened.
Not even a shot was fired.
Yeah.
And the Igbos have to reconstruct themselves from just 20 pounds that they got after the war. Regardless of how much you had in your bank account, you were given only 20 pounds. Like the Phoenix, they rose from the ashes single-handedly without help from the federal government. And the same people that put them in that position are still envious of them because they rebuilt themselves all by themselves. They are still envious of them and continue to want to kill them and want to keep them in abject poverty in perpetuity, and in abject slavery in perpetuity. But there comes a time in the life of the people when they say no. And for us, we have come to that time.
This is it. I think, from what I'm hearing, we have to, begin to look internally. In 1966, while they were killing us, Ojukwu called Igbos, Biafrans living in the north and the west to return to the southeast because he wanted to preserve their lives. He wanted to preserve Biafrans because he saw the genocide happening. The pogroms were the initial stages of genocide. And here again, as you said, it might be that people are waiting, listening for people to give them directions to say, it is time to start going back to the southeast. If Yorubas don't want you, then why stay? And this is what is ironic. I don't know what how you see this. On the one hand, Igbos want to go help build Nigeria, make it a better place. They are committed to restoring Nigeria. But there is Nigerians who don't want them. And so how do you live in a country where you cannot exercise those citizenship rights? Not even Article 1 of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights is being, respected. I can't even tell you. There are several of them I can tell you off the top of my head that are not being respected. So yes, go ahead.
Our people are living in fear in Lagos today.
So then why stay? Why stay?
Yes, so that's the thing. Why stay then? You cannot discuss politics in your workplace or in the marketplace. You're looking over your shoulders. You're careful.
But you're not even safe walking out.
You are not even safe walking out.
And that's a right. If your human rights and dignity are not being respected, you don't have the right to freedom or owning property, or the UN says you do have the right to nationality, and that includes this right to freedom of movement, or voting the person that you want to vote in. If you cannot exercise those rights in places such as that, why are you staying? That is the question.
And the seriousness of this matter is that it is both the state power and the non-state powers that are being used to deny Igbos and Biafrans of these rights of freedom, of association, of speech, of nationality. the Tinubu thugs, even, supported by Nigerian police. Because when the thugs are terrorizing our people in Lagos, making sure they don't vote, the police are there, the law enforcement will be there. So the Tinubu and the cabal and the Fulani cabal holding us hostage are the ones they use state instruments of coercion plus non-state actors. These are thugs that Tinubu have raised over the year, political thugs.
Arbitrary arrest is arbitrary arrest is a violation of human rights. I mean, and Nigeria is a signatory to the UN Declaration of Human Rights. In other words, it is violating everything that it's agreed, to. So, as you said earlier, I don't understand why the international community is not holding Nigeria accountable.
Because Nigeria is a criminal enterprise being run by criminals and drug dealers. And because the British and some international and some other European countries are extracting resources out of Nigeria, they find that the criminal enterprise and the criminal elements that are running the enterprise provide a safe haven for them to continue with the extraction of resources of the people. How can a nation that has 50% unemployment, inflation nearly 30% or more than that, there's no health care in place, the education system is on the ground. Children are not educated properly. How can a nation like that survive? Look at what happened with when they tried to change the currency. The abject suffering they subjected people to. Just for a 1% of the population, the criminals that are running the enterprise to benefit. Every indices that the UN uses to measure a failed nation is more than present in Nigeria's situation. And yet the international community keeps quiet because countries like the United Kingdom are supporting those criminal elements that are running the criminal enterprise called Nigeria. And finally, Rose, the Biafrans have chosen to leave Nigeria and be on their own. It's got to be done in a peaceful process. There are one or two elders, intellectually sound, who know what they are doing, whom God is calling to lead this process at home. I'm not going to mention names.
Please don't.
But they know who they are. And they will not have rest until they do what God is calling them to do. It is time for the people of God, for the Biafrans, to be free. And no power, whether Western power or Nigerian power, will stop the liberation and the freedom of the independent state of Biafra. Anybody agitating for freedom for Biafra is doing the right thing, is not committing any crime. I therefore finally call on the Nigerian government and the international community to intervene so that Nnamdi Kanu and all other Biafra detainees will be released without further delay. It is an injustice, and it shouldn't be allowed to happen. And it is sad that the international community will see the truth and the injustice and turn their back on it. They cannot continue to do that forever, because what they'll be doing is to bequeath a world that is unfair, unjust to generations to come. And I don't think that is what they want to do. Thank you.
Thank you. So in this case, I am going to, we're going to wrap this up. I'm glad that you closed by, focusing on attempts, on what is happening on the ground to, for Biafrans to exit Nigeria, because under Article 15, the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, the first part says everyone has the right to a nationality. In other words, we all have the right to a country. But where that right is not being upheld or is being violated, the second part of the article actually says no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality, nor denied the right to change his, I'm going to say their nationality. So if Biafrans see watch their rights being violated by Nigeria, by others in Nigeria who keep telling them to go back to their homeland, and they wish to go back to their homeland, they do have the right to exit, to leave those places and go back to their homeland and do that peacefully and form an independent homeland. Other nations have done that. Eritrea did it. South Sudan did it. So there is no reason why Biafrans cannot do that, establish their own homeland. The United States, by the way, did that in 1776 when it said it no longer wanted to be part of England. And it exited and declared itself independent. So Biafrans have that right. In an earlier statement,
the European Union recently in 2000.
Yes, exactly. So it's, we are not doing something that has not been done before. There are precedents. So, and you also asked an appropriate question, where are the elders? But it's not just simply the elders of Biafrans in Biafra land or Igbo speaking. In fact, it is those elders who come out in that space called Nigeria. The Afanifre Yoruba Pan-African or Pan-Yoruba sociopolitical group did endorse Obi, but they also should have spoken up when people were being killed and beaten up. They didn't say anything. Maybe you heard them, but I didn't hear them. Where are all these elders? The problem is that people have chosen to stay silent, just as they stayed silent in 1966 when Igbos were being killed. In 1967, when they attacked us, they have chosen not to be responsible, not to act morally. And this is how the genocide begins. This is what happened in Rwanda. And here it is. We're watching it beginning. It is slow, like a slow burn, but it is also escalating. And so hopefully, I hope that our own people, Biafrans, are listening. It is now up to you. Your life is at the stake. So Prime Minister, I'm going to give you the opportunity to close. I want to say thank you for having this conversation with me today. I know that it is not an easy subject, but it is one that we have to talk about. We have to warn our people. We have to draw our people's attention to these issues, because sometimes in the process of, trying to save your life or trying to protect yourself, the last thing you're thinking about is how to make that exit. So someone like Moses, we need a Moses to lead the people out of Egypt's land. It is Exodus now. Our people need to exit and go to where they are safe. And I hope they're listening to you. Prime Minister, please close.
Thank you. Thank you very much. To all Biafrans, we don't have a choice anymore. We do not belong in Nigeria. It's very clear. The message was sounded loud and clear to us in February during the presidential elections. They rejected us. They rejected us before. They rejected us now. They will continue to reject us. And you know what our proverb says? Anyone that is rejected does not reject himself or herself. We have a homeland and that has the potential to be one of the greatest on earth. Biafra is the hope of the Black nation, of the Black people, is the hope of the African continent. But it is you and I who can make it happen. Our forebears did their best. From 1958 to 1964, Eastern Nigeria, Biafra land was the fastest growing economy on earth, faster than China, faster than Singapore, faster than all the so-called Asia Tiger nations. If they did it then, we can do it again. We need to remove every atom of fear. The state of Israel was built in 1948, from a desert ground. And amazingly, men and women from that country who were returning from exile, where they were persecuted, 6 million of them killed by Hitler. They came back to their land and with their own hands, they built it up. They created that nation, a powerful nation, technologically sound, one of the best in the world power, the largest exporter of agricultural products. Innovation and technology is the mainstay in Israel. And we can do better because we know we have the human resource, the human capital to do better. In science, in technology, in medicine, in research and technology, in all walks of life, we have the people. We can do better. We cannot continue to suffer under this servitude that we're experiencing in Nigeria. We cannot continue to endure this humiliation that we saw in Lagos and parts of northern Nigeria in the last election. We cannot, we simply cannot. If you have been dilly-dallying, if you have been sitting on the fence, you should make up your mind today to be part of Biafra restoration. And you are not doing anything wrong. You are only saying that you have the right to self-determination. You have the right to your own nation, to citizenship of a country that you can call your own, not where you can be disenfranchised. You will be threatened. You will live in fear. You cannot speak openly. The time has come, and we have the foundation for us to build on. We call on our elders, former politicians who are still honest, current politicians who are still honest. I know there are very few of them, if there is any at all. But we have to rally around this time. We have to unite, have to work together, and we can build that nation that we all can be proud of. And our generations to come will be safe, not threatened by Islamic extremism, not threatened by terrorists, because we will be strong. We will be stronger than them. We will make sure that no one threatens us. And that is the nation we want, where everyone is equal, everyone is free, everyone can achieve what God has created them to achieve. Thank you, and God bless you. And may God bless our nation, Biafra.
Thank you. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, and I have been in conversation with Prime Minister Christian Udewawu. And this is Rose Ama. Long live Biafra. Peace.
Thank you for listening to us today. Join us next time for news, cultural, and educational programs. This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB.
Hail to me.